Right. So transformation is not really a one-time thing. Although there are those who would actually think that when they start transformation, they want immediate results. But we wanted to really emphasize that transformation takes time. And even though it's just a small company or even the big ones, you need to undergo the same process of really understanding your journey and also how you would like to achieve your vision. So I would say that the biggest roadblock from the different clients that I served is really about their vision. If your vision is not really clear and you just really want things to, align with what is in the trend or what your competitor is doing, then you'll end up wasting a lot of money and resources because at the end of it, it might not be suited for you.
Welcome, guests. Welcome to episode 3 of season 20 of The Leader's Edge. And today I'm very, very excited. I'm looking forward to this conversation simply because we will be talking about a topic that I'm sure is on everybody's mind, AI. And if you're a businessman, I'm sure you're wondering how AI can help your business. And if you are just a general person who, dabbles in AI every now and then, you have a notion that is a very, very powerful tool. And to help us guide through all of this, we invited Gilbert Trinchera. And currently, he is the partner technology consultant with KPMG. I think we all know KPMG. I don't need to introduce that. That said, though, I think it's best that Gilbert introduces himself to talk more about his experiences. So, Gilbert, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. Hello, everyone. It is really very nice to be here. I can feel the warmth and also the excitement. And of course, we'll be having a lot of new insights, hopefully, after this meeting. And yeah, to introduce myself, I've been with KPMG for the past 10 years. And over this decade, I've been through different facets of consulting. I led our digital transformation arm, also alliances, lighthouse operations, anything that goes also with technology innovation. I've been doing a lot of public speaking as well, and also being one of the panelists in different international and local conferences. On the business side, been doing also advisory work for multinationals with those interested in really expanding their transformation journey, or if they have a solution selected already, we're guiding them through each of their steps to make sure, of course, the implementation goes well. While we always have experienced a lot of hiccups, at least the mitigation is there. So that's what I do for a living, and really very happy also to be here.
That's excellent. And some of the words that you said, let's start with some of those when you talk about businesses transforming. Typically, when you are assigned to such a task, what are some of the main roadblocks that businesses run into when they're transforming?
Right. So transformation is not really a one-time thing. Although there are those who would actually think that when they start transformation, they want immediate results. But we wanted to really emphasize that transformation takes time. And even though it's just a small company or even the big ones, you need to undergo the same process of really understanding your journey and also how you would like to achieve your vision. So I would say that the biggest roadblock from the different clients that I served is really about their vision. If your vision is not really clear and you just really want things to, align with what is in the trend or what your competitor is doing, then you'll end up wasting a lot of money and resources because at the end of it, it might not be suited for you. So the big thing that you have to do first is really to set a clear vision of where you're heading, align it with your business strategy, and technologies should follow your business industry and your current environment and not the other way around.
These problems that you have, like having a vision, aligning it with your strategy, these are problems existed even before AI and even before technology. Okay, so one thing's for sure, the technology will not fix that situation. Uh, and relative to that, I do have experience with some projects, and I also teach basic project management. And what I have learned is success of any project just relies on three things. Three things. Let's go with the more simple ones. Clear accountability. There has to be a very clear business case. And my favorite is the purpose has to be also clear. And when I teach project management courses, I one of the first questions I ask is, how many of your projects are in trouble right now simply because the purpose is not understood the same way? Okay. All right. And when you talk
That's
about
right.
that, that's the vision that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh, the owner or the company has. Uh, that said, okay, in your experience, especially with AI, how many of them have what you feel is a misunderstanding of the purpose? And I'm talking about even the owner of the business. Okay. I'm sure you've had situations where businesses, oh, I've got to change because the guy over there is changing. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
right, I'm sure you've seen that. All right,
Mm-hmm.
but how many people, and maybe what do you do in such a situation?
Yeah, that's right. So again, I would really emphasize that with the rapid evolution of AI technology, like the exponential rate of growth of technology is really very crazy right now. As short as 3 to 6 months, it's really
Mhm,
rapidly evolving. We're really at the highest curve right now in our journey towards emerging technology, especially with the advent of AI. So that's why the first thing that I see as really the major struggle with purpose and vision is the rapid evolution of technology through chasing the hype. So the AI landscape now is really very erratic as well. And so without a clear long-term vision, how it truly aligns with their core purpose, then they might waste their money or investments to the wrong type of solution. So there's Gen AI now, but Gen AI is not for everyone, especially if you don't really understand how it's implemented for in your
right,
company.
right.
Another is technical feasibility versus business value. So companies should understand now, regardless of size or industry, that there are tendencies to focus on what AI can do technologically rather than why it should be done in the context of their business purpose and of course their desired outcome or future state. So a lot of our clients have been in the aggressive side of building
Mhm,
impressive AI models, outsourcing it to the best consultants and system integrators, but at the end of it,
mhm,
it does not really translate into tangible business value. So there's really misalignment there. And the last one that I would think is really, of course, the so-called AI washing and over-promising. Some companies might AI wash their offerings using the term AI, like
mhm.
AI in retail, AI in customer service, and it's loosely there to attract investments or attention, or at least make the company appear digital or already ahead of the competition without actually genuinely integrating it into a purposeful product or service. And at the end of it, this can lead to lack of substance, and
Right,
even they would just be seen as they're heading towards the wrong direction, which is not so good for some
right,
investors.
right.
Yeah.
I really like that whole description of this, how would you say, when you implement it in a business. But do you think the same thing is happening with the AI industry in general? Because the AI industry, if you look at it, how many of the big AI companies are actually making money despite all the billions or hundreds of billions of dollars they've absorbed? How many of them are actually making money? Okay, so if you look at it in that
Mhm,
sense,
mhm.
let's take this to the AI industry, the AI giants. Are they getting it wrong? Because for me at the moment, there's a lot of hype. Okay. Personally, I'm seeing very little value in terms of making humans better. Okay. But there's a lot of hype that's absorbed a lot of cash. And so far, there's been no return. Okay. So if we apply to the industry itself, what do you think about that?
Mhm. Yeah, that's very interesting because right now, again, we're at the very critical point of the current AI landscape. And in like if you do a charting about it, there's
Hmm.
really we're here in this moment where there's really a gap between the hype and the delivered value. So many of my co-experts and industry specialists as well look at it as you know there are really lots of reports that are coming that most companies, even the AI industry in general, are often getting it wrong in terms of translating the immense buzzword into tangible, widespread, and
Hmm.
clearly measurable value. So the first reason is that there's this so-called the Gartner hype cycle.
Hmm.
It's the through of disillusionment, they say.
I'm on the
Basically,
quadrant. Yay!
yes, that's right. So these AI industry companies that are, all over the world now, from US to China, you know, um, there are just really some cycles that after an initial peak of an inflated expectations, there's really an era of through disillusionment and where the reality of implementation sets in, like the initial hype fades and then the challenges becomes apparent. When
Right.
Gen AI become a hit last December 2022, everyone was going through it, and they're really amazed and they want to do it in 2023 and 2024. But now in 2025 they're seeing, oh, with investment, but we have these investments, but
Mhm.
now why are we why are we lagging? Why are we not getting the value out of it? So many in the AI industry believe that this is still the aspect of this gap, no, the through of disillusionment. And another is, as maybe we've discussed earlier, is um there is this technology first, problem second type of approach. So the technology first and problem second approach is that when companies really want the technologies to actually transform their business immediately, and they thought it's like a low-hanging fruit for them or a quick win. But
Mhm.
it's actually not, because the genuine business need comes first before all else will adjust to it to make it happen. But
Okay.
right now, they're seeing that no, AI is really coming here to transform us, which is wrong. No? And then, of course,
Mhm.
the other factor, the two more factors, is the skills gap. While we know AI is now easily understandable as opposed to the AI that we know 10 years ago, which is like,
Mhm.
like sci-fi movie type of AI. But there are still specific elements there that would require a holistic way of understanding and implementing the skills needed for AI or emerging technology types of implementation. So this skills shortage also adds to the layer of huge problems in the AI industry itself. They need to
Mhm.
have multifaceted data scientists and AI engineers that are not
Right.
just technical, but also understands organizations, governments, and even the private industry to effectively develop, deploy, and maintain those AI solutions. And lastly is resistance to change. We are seeing that there are governments that ban the use of these generative AI like ChatGPT because they see more risks rather than benefits. Of course, that's really good because governments are really doing their job to regulate and also be skeptic with these kinds of changes.
Mhm.
But it may hurt the populace or a certain country where there might be a lot of opportunities that they can get out of it. There are
Mhm.
also misunderstanding about how it may displace jobs. And we've been hearing that even since early 2010s, when there were just simple automations before and cloud was
Mhm.
really gaining traction back then. But now it's really more evident even in social media. So these kinds of resistance to change actually also affects the entire AI industry and
Mhm.
might derail AI adoption or the misuse of it because we also need to factor the ethical component to it. So I believe that's really how the AI industry is really situated right now and the different challenges that they're encountering.
Let's start with a phrase that you said, the AI industry in itself, how it started and everything. Was it a technology first and then the problem? Or was it a problem first, then the technology? Okay, did they create the technology and then how cool, let's create problems for it so it can solve those problems. Uh, I mean, that's just a general question. What do you think about and I'll something I just watched this morning. I'm sure you
Mm,
know that Mr. Zuckerberg paid a certain Mr. Wang a bunch of billions of dollars,
right.
and Mr. Zuckerberg's reason was to crush ChatGPT.
Mhm, mhm.
Now, do you really think that's a great vision for a company with so much power?
I believe not because um, we must really be in this era where there's more cooperation rather than
Yes.
competition, or
Right.
we create barriers for globalization. You know,
Right.
while there's a lot of discussion about globalization, and when it really boomed in the early 2000s, it opened a lot of opportunities, and the short term was really very good until 2007 or 8. But we're experiencing really cycles about this. And now with the advent of AI, like we need to really shift our mindset towards more economic freedom and breaking barriers within borders. So, but in your first question related to the AI industry in general, with their actions currently and also with the thinking of whether did they really grow because they were problem first and tech second, or the other way around, tech first and problem second. Um, it's happening even in the AI industry. They were tech first, of course, because that's what they know. They were engineers, they were computer scientists, and coming from the big tech firms in the early 70s or 80s that really wanted to change the world and transform everything, and inspired by the startup stories in the early 2000s. So we would say that when tech first happens in this new landscape of AI, there are really some challenges that it affects the way they're operating right now. No, so of course there's this venture capital funding model
Right.
where they want to impress the investors with these breakthrough approaches or never heard before types of like improvements and innovation.
Right.
These AI startups really want to get the attention of the venture capitalists, and it's designed that way. Like it's emotional, it's about storytelling, it's about changing the world. And they're looking for disruptive technologies with exponential growth because they want to give the money and then in 2 years or 3 years, I need return for this much. So this encourages a focus on the tech and rapid iteration, and sometimes at the expense of deeply validated problem solving or understanding the root causes of what you're trying to solve. And this mentality can be in a way that they will think that, I can build amazing tech and the problems it can solve will become apparent later on. So I would think
Right.
that's really why the AI industry is moving that way because, the venture capitalists are here and they need the returns.
I'm,
Another
you
is,
might have heard the term, the famous hockey stick graph.
yeah,
You know that term. For those who are not familiar, that's your graph of your profit. See, you're going to lose
right,
money first, and then all of a sudden it's going to go to the sky. You're going to be rich.
right. That's right. And
uh,
many,
Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, many thought that it's really, the tech or the AI industry that will
Uh-huh.
give them that kind. But, you know, if we look at history, then we would understand that even the first iterations of the mainframe computers, it took 20 years before it stabilized. And the software or operating system also took like a decade before,
Mhm.
it became profitable. So right now, if we're really wanting quick things, it would really, you know, um, the risks are really higher than the rewards if you look at it that way.
If you look at it that way, can you
Mm.
show us the other way?
Mm.
Where yes, there are risks. I think we all know that. But what are is there let's try to look at it from the other way. How do the rewards outweigh the risks?
Yeah. Um, I believe if we look at it in a different aspect and angle, when we would like to address the rewards that are coming from the risks, looking at the opportunity to make it work for the AI industry in general, then of course we wanted to look at the track of looking at the problem first and the tech second. So the problem first approach would really allow them to focus all their attention and expertise on the deeply rooted problem by understanding it, identifying the pressure points, and looking at each step of the journey and translating it into more understandable context for the investors or for decision makers before even thinking about putting in AI. So the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is from experience. It's always about looking at the business metrics and not the technology or innovation metrics at first. Their successes should be shaped and envisioned in terms of business impact. Like, are you after increased revenues, reduction of costs, improved customer satisfaction, or faster time to market? Don't get lost in the AI model accuracy if it doesn't really translate to a tangible business benefit. And
Mm,
another is you need to prioritize based on impact and feasibility, like the use of frameworks like 2 by 2 matrix to map potential AI initiatives based on the business value versus the feasibility of the implementation. Because you might have really tangible AI solution, but the feasibility and even the cost later on to maintain it is really high. So it will drain all your cash and resources.
right.
Yet, you know, it would make your operations complicated at the back end. But of course, in front, it might be good, might be very techie type, but there are a lot of things to sacrifice. So you need to start with the quick wins on looking at the high value, high feasibility projects that aligns your business and tech to build the momentum and demonstrate, of course, the value early on. And
Mhm.
last but not the least, of course, is really, I think companies now should always look at it's humans that actually should run AIs, not the other way around. People is a very important component in running businesses and organizations. And we understand that our customers, our constituents, for governments, still needs human touch. So we need to have a human-centered AI design where the human connection, experiences,
Mm,
well-being is at the core of the AI design. Uh, it's an approach where you look at the problems on why humans do not adopt to AI and look at the human capabilities first, not just to automate tasks and not
mhm,
consider the entire impact in the organization and the people that runs it. It should be based on empathy and user research design, like deeply understanding their pain points, workflows, even their connection to the job itself and the
mhm,
aspiration. So it might involve qualitative aspect of identifying how should it be designed. And of course, the last is the ethical consideration in humans. No? So there will always be like AIs that are based on bias or for propaganda, and then it does not respect privacy or collects data in the wrong way or for fun, and yet they will use it for other
Mhm.
purposes, and of course there will be lack of fairness and transparency there from the very beginning. So you need to ask the question, how will these kinds of projects or use cases in AI impact people, and how it can actually help mitigate the negative consequences, especially that social media combined with AI is really reshaping societies, elections, governments, and
Right.
sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Yeah.
You know, just some of the recent deep fake videos that were created. I mean, I'm still in the position where I look at it, I can tell it's AI. Okay. But it's getting more difficult.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes.
So sometimes there's just a slight delay with the lip sync and stuff, or the certain moves that look a little off. So I think it's AI, but it's getting more difficult. Okay, and you said something very powerful about the impact on people. And typically, if you're a business, you see that AI can do X, Y, Z for someone. What are you seeing? I'll ask a question, and what are you seeing? And maybe I'd ask you, what do you prefer to see? All right. And I'll take this from a study that they did in Finland, where they implemented the 4-day work week. Okay. And AI is helping them do that. Okay. And it's not by loading the person with more work. It's by letting the person do his load better so he can spend more time with people that matter. Okay. Now, what are you seeing on your end? Are they say, oh, cool, here's AI. Now I can give Paul more work, or will I allow Paul to do his work quicker so he has more time to spend with his loved ones, if you want to say? What are you seeing?
Yeah, actually also like more recently, like within this month, Dubai also implemented the 4-day
Or
work,
they?
I believe. Yeah, so of course the idea of a 4-day work week, particularly when enabled by AI, is really incredibly compelling and represents the future of work. Like even during the pandemic in 2021, that's what most governments are actually studying. But when the pandemic ended, it was a realization that they have to look at the economic factors right now, where they can't really finish looking at the pros and cons of a 4-day work week. But certainly, if you consider how AI should actually be transformed industry-wide, or countrywide, or even in that global scale, you know, I would prefer personally seeing that the future of work would involve AI as an alternative for human workers. Like what you've said was very powerful because, there are, you know, um, there are days in a week that you can actually let AI do the processing first. And then your time would be spent on more meaningful things like, human connection, spending time with your family, or looking at the more pressing issues in a company or in an organization. So I would say that we need to use AI to increase the promise of a better work-life balance. Of course, not just in these few countries that initiated the 4-day work week, but also for everyone, especially here in the Philippines, if we're looking at it at a country perspective,
Traffic
where
time, never mind.
yes, that's right. The infrastructure here is really not that conducive for even a 6-day work week because it adds more volume in the streets.
Mhm,
And then, of course, the purchasing capacity is still the same. So it really
right.
has more negative rather than positive impact on our economy if you look at the 5-day work week.
Mhm,
So I'd really think that that should be the perspective right now if you ask me about seeing it and prefer seeing it. But we also need to factor the challenges and considerations, a reality check on, these outcomes because, 4-day work week might be good on paper, but it's not a universal fit because there are certain industries as well that is not yet relying on AI and would really require presence and ability to respond immediately. Like, of course, the healthcare industry,
Right.
hospitality, there will be emergency situations or services. There are also manufacturing or industrial manufacturing industries where there's a need for continuous manufacturing. Um, yeah, and of course, the constant human presence is there in certain points. And also, of course, we need to really upgrade the measurement of productivity because the model that we're using is still during the
Mhm.
post-World War
Right.
II era. We need to look at it on how we can really focus from hours work to results delivered. If we successfully figure it out globally, I think the 4-day work week can actually work with the help, of course, of the augmentation of AI. And of course, last thing I believe is the potential for short-lived morale boost, meaning, it can have like a good feeling for employees because they can do other things, but it might be
Mhm.
temporary if underlying workplace issues aren't addressed. So,
Right.
AI helps with efficiency but doesn't fix poor management or toxic culture. So even if you have a 4-day work week, if how the company is run or making decisions, still it wouldn't work.
No, that's well, now maybe I should just ask you straight out. Is that something, let's say poor management or toxic work culture? And here in the Philippines, and I think in most of Southeast Asia, uh, most corporations are still family owned. Here in the Philippines, I'm
Yes.
sure more than 50% are family owned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Uh, and in Southeast Asia, I'm pretty sure it's also the same. Okay. So,
Yeah.
uh, so when you come into things like toxic work cultures and stuff like that, that's a little difficult to fix because it's a family-owned business. Okay. At least I think. All right. I might be wrong. But when it when it comes down to that, toxicity of your work environment, poor management, poor leadership, and all of that, uh, in what way can AI help actually fix that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think even AI would actually have a difficulty processing it at this juncture. It's very subjective, especially if you blend the variable related to family business. Because I would really see, and based also my experience talking to these owners of family businesses, especially in the Philippines, 95% of the businesses are small and medium enterprises.
Yes.
And in
Yep.
that 95%, half of it are family owned as of 2024. So the problem is really deeply seated human and systemic issues if we look at it. Um, it cannot be fixed directly or even entirely. AI, on the other hand, if you look at it in a way that it can solve any immediate problems, its effectiveness actually depends on how it's used and the underlying intent and
Right.
readiness of the people that's wielding it. However, if we want it to become a powerful enabler, we can actually let AI focus on the insights that you would actually get from it. And when acted upon by committed leaders and managers, it can significantly address and mitigate the aspects of a toxic culture and improve management practices. So, what do I mean by that? Um, they can be data driven this time,
Mhm.
and they just really have to make sure it's really used proactively because the data that comes from it can be used as a channel to address poor communication, like sentiment
Mhm.
analysis and communication audits. Like these, there are now even free or they can try the trial version just for them to check if in the network of the company, like looking at emails, chat logs, internal
Mhm.
communication platforms, and even spoken or transcribed meeting recordings, there can be patterns of negative sentiments, aggression,
Right.
disengagement, lack of clarity, or even, employees backbiting their bosses, that could lead them to actually look at the data on why it's happening,
Mhm.
not to act as if like they they just really want to defend themselves and you know remove these employees. Uh, because if you do it, it's gonna be always a defensive approach for the owners, where
Right.
you will not listen to your employees. This is how we run things, and we want it this way, and we're just after the money. We're just after the profit. Then your company will not really grow and actually ride with the progressive things that are happening now. And another thing, asking about how AI can fix it, they can also implement a system where there's improved performance management and feedback systems. So, when you have the sentiment analysis or sentiment data systems, you can, combine it with a robust feedback system. And
Mhm.
that AI can also help in looking at various data points like sales figures,
Right.
project completion rates, and customer feedback. So you would start your discussion with your managers or your supervisors that, okay, we're missing 5% of our targets. What's happening? And then you can be more objective there. The individual will have a basis of saying about his sentiments later, and of course, explaining himself why he's missing it, rather than you look at it in a perspective where your ego comes first, and then later, of course, you let emotion run you, and then the conversation will not go well,
Mhm.
and there will be bias about that person, or you will trust other people on their rumors about these co-employees. So it would really look as if it's political, it's increasing in terms of bias. But if we look at it differently, the feedback system can actually address the team performance, reduction
Mhm.
of bias, of course, and favoritism or personal grudges. Instead, they can make their communication style more based on evidence, based on data, based on records and facts, and of course, the feedback value that comes from getting real-time insights, or if not real-time, at least just few days, you can already collect key metrics for them. There's still a lot, but I believe these two use cases of using AI to address and improve management practices can be a good starting point.
Have you actually worked with cases like that?
Yes, yes. We have
Oh, go ahead.
use cases that companies would really want collection with, of course, a consented and in a secured environment.
Mhm.
They allow us to run sentiment analysis. Um, we even have also random social engineering types of projects where we would see if there are really weak points in the security infrastructure,
Right.
both human aspect and the technology aspect. So yeah.
That's for me, that's good news. Okay. It's a very smart way to use the technology, if you want to say. Because usually when you come into performance appraisal, it's not the performance appraisal that's the issue, it's power that's the issue.
Right, right.
Okay, so for example, if I'm your boss and you know that if I give you a good score, you'll get your bonus, what,
Mm-hmm.
come on, that's already an unfair, how do you call, situation in terms of discussing performance, because
Mm-hmm.
I hold all the power, right? Okay,
Right.
so that's already scary in itself, and that's something that I find fascinating that they can give a sentiment. What did you call it? A
Sentiment analysis.
sentiment analysis. There we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that whoever gets a sentiment analysis reads it correctly, because I'm sure that uh, maybe 10, 15 years ago, when they started doing the 360s, okay, 360s for me, the first question I'll ask is, are you ready for it? Because mama, yeah, you're not ready for it. Okay. The owner of the company hears you 360 degrees, you're all fired the next day. So what happened? Okay. Uh,
Yeah.
and actually that's one of the things that I personally am a little concerned about, because naturally our brains are lazy. We'll always find the
Mm,
shortest way
mm,
to do things.
mm.
And it's very easy to fall into the trap of letting AI decide for you. Okay, because hey, look, AI is doing this already. So AI, what do you think? Oh, I'll just go with that because you don't want to think it through. And for me, it's a catch-22 situation simply because AI is also reducing our capacity to think at the same time. Okay, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's interesting. It made me, reflect for a few seconds. Um, I think also, you know, the new generation, especially the digital natives, as they say, those that are born in the early 2000s up to now, they, you know, they were born with all these conveniences of technologies everywhere. Uh, and when they started schooling, everything already is like there with lots of information and sources for them to learn things. Unlike, of course, the older generations, which, you really have to tickle your mind, do some efforts, look at it, and go through the process of research. So anyway, I believe you've really touched on important points, especially on the profound and critical concern on the increasing pervasive use of AI, or the catch-22 situation, where relying on AI for decisions might induce a decline in our own capacity to think critically or make decisions independently and exercise our judgment. I think there's a study made in the Philippines that comprehension of almost 19 million uh, senior high school graduates really had, you know,
Collapsed.
unfavorable results. Yeah, especially in terms of their functional literacy. So it's really a testament, because these senior high school started maybe 2019 or 2020, where of course the
Oh,
pandemic happened and the learning was modular, virtual, and at their own pace, and there really lack of supervision and experience in doing classroom interactions, etc. So, you can look at it at a time also where AI and all the, you know, um, technologies uh, exponentially grow and expose these kids and high school students. So it really affected their ability to actually learn and, have an effort to actually research and learn. So I believe that in the mechanism of cognitive decline through AI over reliance, if we don't take actions on this, so I believe this is a message for key decision makers in the academic industry, or even governments, or even if you're in the private industry, to contribute to not just policy, but actions on, say, your recruits or hires. We need to really take action on the need to actually still challenge our employees or even the students to, use AI for a purpose that would actually just let them, lay the groundwork, and then still they would do their part in critical thinking. Um, Over-reliance on AI would actually impact us very negatively, especially on automation bias and complacency. We will tend to rely on AI, which, if AI is not properly designed to favor suggestions from automated systems or how it's coded and designed, and even ignore contradictory information from other sources,
right.
which could mean you will be planting the wrong political message to the young ones or even to the old ones. But generally, it would create factions and divisions in the country. No, the effect also might be very negative because it would reduce active engagement in problem solving, analysis, and error detection if you over rely on the use of
Right.
AI. And lastly, I believe it's, of course, the scaling and the skill erosion, like the gradual loss of human skills and, you know machines taking over those tasks. So I
Right.
believe we lose the ability to perform these tasks independently because of this over-reliance.
Gilbert, this conversation can go on forever because every answer that you give uh, opens more questions. Okay, if you want to say. But going back to our original title of transformation through insight, uh, insight is actually the key word, and insight relies on what I call wisdom. Okay, something that AI doesn't have. Okay, AI has all the intellect it wants, but it doesn't have any wisdom. Okay, but as you pointed out, we can fall into the trap of just letting AI decide, and we just forget our wisdom. Okay,
Right.
so
Exactly.
that how do they say? And Mark Cuban pointed this out. I think it's something that we should watch out for. He said that as intellect or knowledge becomes cheap, okay, then it's a matter of relationships, which means that in the future, uh, because knowledge is available so readily, it's not going to be this kind of conversation. It'll be actual face-to-face conversation that matters. Okay, so I thought, oh, that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Mhm.
That's a good thought. Okay, because it
Mhm.
becomes so cheap. I said, what the hell? Yeah. So,
Right.
uh, but I'm glad that we spoke today. Okay, you've made me realize many things about the industry, and for me, the biggest challenge we're all facing is just moving too fast. Okay, this comment I made even before COVID, I said, the notion of change, it's not so much the change that's the issue. It's just it's going too fast. Okay, we don't know what to do with it. We can't keep up with it. And of course, an older guy like me, you might say, yeah, you're old, you can't change. Agreed. But at the same time, it's just the speed. It's just going way too fast for us to even figure out what's going around, what's coming
Yes.
up.
Mhm. Mhm.
And in general, humans have been never that good at predicting the future.
Mhm.
Okay.
I would like to comment on what you said about the speed of our innovation and progress, because I think that's a very important issue now globally. Because that's a case for concern, especially the AI's environmental footprint. And while
Oh, yeah,
the other things are also talking of, we're talking about sustainability and our planet that's bound to actually drain its resources, particularly oil and natural gas, which are not renewable in its sense. But AI is coming here to really drain a lot of energy to run just a simple query. Just a simple query
right.
will require you 1 hour of 50 light bulbs. So that
Oh,
level of energy. Imagine, um, like say 1 million people in a second asking the same question. And then of course the AI needs to run. And in this case, a massive energy consumption is really a big concern right now, because these data centers um,
yeah,
are emitting a lot of carbon footprint, which is equivalent to like multiple car lifetimes or hundreds of flights.
right.
So that's really one thing that we need to also consider. As much as we are going to, hasten and of course advance things rapidly, are we doing it the right thing? And is it at the expense of our home, our Earth?
Uh, our Earth.
Yes.
It's those are many more questions we could continue talking for the whole day about. And it's maybe we don't have time, or we could have another discussion about this. Maybe involve a third or
Yeah.
fourth person who will
Sure.
make the conversation more engaging, if you want to say. But for our viewers right now, is there anything that maybe you'd like to invite them to or subscribe to before we close this down?
I'm just on LinkedIn, so message me if
Okay.
ever you have. And I'm connected to KPMG, of course. So if you really want to discuss these things more, or to start the conversations on your different problems, just message me.
All right, thank you. And for everybody watching, please, if you found this interesting and this helps us a lot, and it goes a lot, means a lot to us, it goes a long way for us. Hit those subscribe, join, follow, like, hit all those buttons because those we definitely need to do. And for our next episode, we'll keep that under wraps first because things are moving very quickly, and we'll have something very, very exciting for our next episode. Other than
Perfect.
that, as we always say, learning is a never ending journey with limitless vistas.
Thank you, everyone.